Today, we're going to review the Barbie movie because everybody needs to know what's going on. I wore the one Calvin Klein shirt that I have that's pink. I got the chain out. You think this is a metrosexual review? This is going to be the most accurate synopsis from basically a point of view nobody's ever heard of. I saw the movie yesterday. Did I have an excuse? I have two younger siblings. So yeah, I did actually. I was conformed. I was forced to because, oh, we can't drive yet. So you have to take your preteen sisters to go watch the movie. And turns out that the movie's not that bad. Turns out that the set pieces are not that bad. Turns out that your friend that's like a movie critic that really gives a shit thought the movie was okay. Turns out that the movie is like a 7 out of 10. Turns out that the Barbie movie is carried by the cast. The cast that comprises of a lot of mixed colored individuals, the mystery meat deli section. And guess what? It still turns out to be pretty good. There's a lot of people like the quartering, dysgenic vouch acolyte, basically white people criticism of like, oh, the movie's too woke. Is it really woke? It isn't. And a lot of the woke stuff in the movie, mind you, provided is in a context that makes it look really bad. So even if the female director or whatever it was that directed the movie, wink wink, if those boys directed the movie, they made it in such a way to where it looks bad on them if they're like pushing the woke agenda. An example of this being that you have Barbie, Margot Robbie, and the whole thing she's stigmatized about is, oh, she's the stereotypical Barbie. But then when you juxtapose her to a different Barbie, they make fun of all the other Barbies. The one that's pregnant, the one that's black, the one with the TV on her back. So it's like, yeah, they want like different stuff, like different Barbies of inclusion, but they shit on all the diversity equity ones. So it's like at that point, who's making the narrative and what is it pointing towards? Like it's inherently right wing at that point. And then moreover, when you're looking into the next point, there's this idea. And you see the figure of Margot Robbie, a very hot woman. She's 33 years old. She's a little bit pushing it, but she's not really aging yet. Anyhow, she's really attractive, and she's a stereotypical Barbie. And while she does have these problems, like eventually, all these Barbies live in a picturesque world where it's like a mix of like the 1990s and the 1950s. And so they're kind of like traditionally feminine, not necessarily like like they can't vote, like they run their own Supreme Court, but it's like very, very girly. And so it's somewhat cute. But then again, there's a lot of lacking stuff. Like all the men are like pretty boy metrosexuals. And it might seem hypocritical for somebody like me to say like, oh, these guys are very effeminate. But the point is that realistically speaking, these guys are cucked. Now, granted, there's a lot of different things that makes this movie really interesting. Part of it is that the stand-in of itself doesn't even work the same way it does. The lifeguards are there just ogling at people. They're not saving anybody. The water doesn't work how water works. It's like a cardboard cutout almost, like made out of plastic. It's very surreal to look at the setting. And they eventually, and then you have Ryan Gosling, who's this 40-year-old man trying to play the character of like a 28-year-old. So it's a little jarring because you can tell he's aging more than Margot Robbie. He has like 10 years on her. And so he goes in there and he's the Ken. And the Ken has like the six-pack, whatever. He fits the aesthetic otherwise. And it's clear that he's just simping for Barbie. And this is kind of the catalyst here because that's fomenting the entire precipice of the whole movie structure is that Ken is a side character to Barbie. And what this movie is preaching at the end of the day is not feminism, it is equality. It's egalitarianism, which frankly is to the right of the common woke narrative, okay? So for a Hollywood movie to preach, individualism and egalitarianism and normalcy, that is actually pretty right-wing by that standard, okay? I'm saying not as like that's not laudable. It's to say, you know what? It's not that bad. So how about you get off the balls of the Barbie people? Because evidently it's not that left-wing at all. And here's another example. There is a mother who's like working at the Barbie company, or Mattel, I think is the parent organization. But ostensibly, this 35-year-old Latina has like a 15-year-old daughter. And this 15-year-old is like, oh, racism is bad. Barbie, Margot Robbie, you're a fascist. And people laugh at that because it's ridiculous. And it's played for jokes how liberal the girl is because evidently the girl is retarded. And so that's very evident by the way that she talks. And she's using a lot of liberal talking points in the movie. Like, oh my God, the white savior complex. But it's kind of cute. It's cute because it's so profoundly stupid that people don't really take it as a serious thing. It comes off like a joke. Anyway, it seems like the director is self-aware about this and writes it in such a way where it is like a Bill Maher sort of like quasi-centrist liberal like 2000s talking point laden sort of movie and not the sort of like fifth wave post-Gamergate feminism that you see nowadays. And so it is somewhat of this thing where all of a sudden people are going to this movie and watching it and coming away with nothing that is that liberal because it is inherently right-wing insofar as it is not moving the Overton window further left. And that is the political segment done. There you go. Now going on to the plot. So there's a lot of metrosexual men. All the Ken dolls are really soft, effeminate, like Frank Ocean, like even the black guys are like gayer Kanye West, basically, if you were to make a comparison there. And what you notice immediately is that these men, they all orbit around the girls. And so that's the opposite of what it ought to be in a real life setting. And so evidently, this causes a lack of feeling or emotion on the guy's part. And so then what happens is that I went to the bathroom like 3 times during the movie, so I missed this part. But eventually, for whatever reason, Barbie and Ken, Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, end up in Venice Beach, basically. And if you know anything about Venice Beach, there's a ton of hobos, construction workers, whatever, aka Mexicans, and they go around and they're getting catcalled or whatever, and they're kind of shocked because reality is somewhat juxtaposed from the Barbie world that is like ideally feminine in the 90s construct. Now you're dealing with 2023 Los Angeles, which is not even that right wing, but relative to the utopian sort of like Amazonian feminism that they had over there in Barbie Land, it seems very different. Another point I wanted to make is that, yes, they had Barbie, and she's a stereotypical girl, and she's flawed, and she's like the hot chick. And that's supposed to be like meant as like a heel, as in like that's a bad thing. But realistically speaking, when they juxtapose that to the weird Barbie, which is supposed to be like the authentic Barbie that got molested, that got like basically perturbed as a doll, because it's kind of like a reverse Chucky concept where the dolls are like in the Barbie land, they're like voodoo dolls. So like if you burn the Barbie's hair in real life, like if a 5-year-old girl were to burn the hair of the pretty Barbie, she turns into a weird Barbie in the Barbie land. And so this chick is played by the girl who plays Hillary Clinton as of 5 years ago, this Hillary Clinton actress from SNL, and she's ugly and she's relatively like disjointed. Her legs are like doing the splits, like she's completely dysgenic. And it's played as like this girl is like she has the truth on her side. She knows a lot of the complexes in this reality, in this paradigm, but she's the loser. And so Barbie, the blonde one, the Margot Robbie one's like the cute, kind of like ditzy. We like her. And so I guess that's the prevailing narrative here. So yeah, like they might try to put in this liberal narrative, but evidently it doesn't work out that way. And so we go on and we see the two different genders, Barbie and Ken, interfacing with the real world. Ken goes like to a CEO, like a big Fortune 500 company. He's impressed by the masculinity, how they shush the secretary that's a female. Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, like traditionally like masculine 90s Mad Men era sort of like corporate structure stuff is all around. The facade, the glasses, like even the infrastructure, you can really tell that it's promoting masculinity. And in so doing so, Ken gets gravitated towards that because in the Barbie world land, those men were completely neutered. And so he goes there and he kind of gets ingratiated, mind you, better said, around all this culture, and he starts to like it. And so then he starts being very stereotypically masculine. He starts adopting a fondness of horses, horsepower in the engines, etc. And so then when they go back to the real world, all of a sudden, Ken and all the other guys basically become these jocks. And so now all of a sudden, it's like a degenerate frat culture, but that's still probably a step up from the Barbie land. Anyhow, then you have another complex. The other complex would be the other girls. The other girls are a mystery meat cast of different people, including Dua Lipa for a cameo, not even worth, by the way. And you see all these people, and it's different Barbies. And these different Barbies coalesce in a plan to gaslight the Kens into becoming feminist again. And what happens at the end of the movie, turns out they do a full 360, and they just blend the two. And so now you have like a quasi-patriarchy operating in the 90s feminism, which is not that bad. So like, if anything, the end of the Barbie movie becomes a more right-wing version of America Today is actually the takeaway, which is interesting. And everybody comes off happy at the end. And yeah, there's a lot of emasculating parts. Like obviously Ryan Gosling had to like dye his hair blonde and like it's a little gay. It's like a little platinum, like I don't know. And then you look at for instance the way that Barbie treats him and like she friend zones him at the end and how he cries to her. And it's kind of cute actually. And so it's not that bad. And symbolic of the culture because the end credits is an Ice Spice song, but I like it. And so it's like, it is what it is. And, given the era that it came out in, this Barbie movie comes off like it came out in 2008 in regards to the liberal messaging, which is a marked improvement from what I was expecting. Given I had no expectations of the Barbie movie because I'm not this guy who looks forward to movies at all because, like, why would any adult 20-year-old care? So I watch it, out of commitment to my family. Obviously, I had to do it. It's kind of like an errand at that point. We watched the movie. It's fine, like, decent. I would love it. I would love the movie to be a little more like, I don't know. Let's get a Latino Barbie next time. It'll be a little hotter. Margot Robbie's built like a model, 5'9", whatever. She's fine. Would, by the way. I'm not gonna lie. People on Twitter saying she's mid. Kill yourself. You're wrong. Anyway, Ryan Gosling, a little too old. The casting a little bit off. Oh yeah, they had a fat Barbie. Again, why? Like, mind you, for all the Ken dolls, for the most part, they had a bunch of like handsome, tall, like in shape men play the Ken dolls. But when it came to the Barbies, they were pretty much all hot chicks minus the one fat chick. But it's like, can we get a fat Ken? But no, because the beauty standard is supposed to be corrected on the women's part. So that's the whole point. Like, oh, women were so fat shamed. But then the men, when you're casting all the Ken dolls, they're all in shape like tall, handsome guys. So then what is it then? So evidently it's very hypocritical for the casting studios or the casting management to do that. And so that's something that I noticed. That's a nitpick that nobody else will bring up, is that none of the Ken dolls were unattractive by conventional standards, but evidently with the girl dolls, they let some floozies get in there. And so that's unfortunate that women are going to like get a pass for being fat, because that's not going to get a pass for me personally. And what I did see when I go to the movies is that a lot of guys were wearing pink shirts. I was wearing a black shirt. Now, ironic because I forgot I had this in the closet. So, but interesting. So a lot of guys that I know are bringing their girlfriends to the movies to watch Barbie. I don't know what to think about this. Comment down below what you think about that. Is that simping? Is it gay? I don't know. Some girl stuff is okay, right? Like some girl shows maybe, but Barbie. Anyways, for what it was, I think Barbie was a 7 out of 10. I think because it is it's not as liberal as it was like in my mind, so that's a good thing. And the other thing is that it was entertaining, it was enthralling. Moreover, it was a little bit surreal watching it. And granted, I never played with the Barbie. Obviously, I'm a guy, like that has never come up. Like, have I touched a Barbie doll before? Like, have I picked it up before? Yeah. Have I picked up a G.I. Joe before? Yeah, of course. But did I really play with these dolls growing up? Not like girly dolls. But you have sisters. They have like the little mansion, the plastic thing that's like, yay big. Yeah, we understand that. And so yeah, so it's a little surreal because you grow up in that culture a little bit in the periphery, obviously, just looking at somebody else play it. And it's a little bit interesting to see it get fleshed out into real life. And I think that's kind of cool. And so for that, I do appreciate the movie for what it was. And I don't recommend anybody watch it, but I mean, if you do, you're going to like it. It's one of these things to where it's like, hey, other college guy, do you want to see Barbie? Don't do that. But I guess if your girlfriend's going to drag you to Barbie, it's not the end of the world, okay? So let's get ahead, and I'll rate the movie a 7 out of 10. Pleasantly surprised. Margot Robbie, look, if it were an ugly chick playing her, I would not like the movie at all, but she's hot, so she gets a pass. We like it. We like Ryan Gosling. Anyway, comment down below what were your final thoughts, because I thought it was a decent movie.